Sophia always had a complicated relationship with her father, David. Since she was a child, she remembered him as a distant figure, almost a shadow that quickly passed through the house before disappearing again on the road. David was a truck driver, a man of few words and even rarer gestures of affection. The house where Sophia grew up was modest, located in a quiet neighborhood of a small town. The yellowed walls held memories of a solitary childhood, where the empty space left by her father's absence was filled only by silence and routine. Her mother Marie did her best to compensate, but there was an emptiness that not even all the maternal love could fill. Sophia was a curious and intelligent girl. Her brown eyes, inherited from her father, sparkled with enthusiasm when she learned something new at school. She loved to read and dreamed of becoming a writer one day, but every time she tried to share her passions and dreams with her father, she found only a distant look and a nod that seemed more automatic than interested. David's arrivals were always the same. The sound of the truck parking in front of the house made Sophia's heart race. She ran to the window, hoping to see a smile on her father's tired face. But what she saw was always the same serious expression, his shoulders sagging under the weight of thousands of miles traveled. David would enter the house, leave his backpack in the living room and head to the bathroom for a long shower. Then he would sit at the kitchen table, where Marie served dinner. Sophia watched, eager for a word, a gesture, anything to indicate that her father was happy to see her. But the meals were always silent, punctuated only by the sound of cutlery against plates. Sometimes David would bring small gifts from his trips, a different sweet, a colourful ribbon for her hair, a keychain from some distant city. Sophia received these objects with a mix of joy and sadness. They were proof that her father thought of her, but at the same time, they seemed so impersonal, as if they could be given to any child. The days when David was home were few and passed quickly. Soon he was packing his backpack again, preparing for another long journey. Sophia watched him from the bedroom door, wanting to say so many things, but the words got stuck in her throat. Her father would approach, pat her on the shoulder and say, "Take care, girl," and he would leave, taking with him the silence that seemed to be his most faithful companion. As Sophia grew up, the distance between her and her father seemed to widen. In her teenage years, her attempts to connect became rarer. She turned to books and writing, creating worlds where parents were present and loving, where families talked and shared moments together. It was during this time that the inevitable happened. On a rainy autumn night, the phone rang. Marie answered, her heart freezing upon hearing the deep and official voice on the other end of the line. David had been in an accident on the road. He did not survive. The mother had to tell her daughter that her father would not be coming back. The funeral was a surreal experience for Sophia. She found herself surrounded by truck drivers who knew her father better than she did. She heard stories about David's generosity, about how he was always willing to help a colleague in trouble on the road. These revelations, instead of comforting her, only deepened the wound in her heart. Why could her father be so present for strangers, yet so distant from her? Years passed. Sophia graduated from college, became a literature teacher, and started writing her own books. She got married, had children, and built a life. But the shadow of the unresolved relationship with her father still loomed over her. In quiet moments, she found herself thinking about David, wondering what it would be like if he was still alive, if they ever could have truly connected. It was on a typical Saturday afternoon, 10 years after David's death, that something extraordinary happened. Sophia was at home, grading her students' assignments, when she heard the doorbell ring. Upon opening the door, she found a mailman holding a yellowed envelope. "Sophia Martinez?" the mailman asked, checking the name on the envelope. "Yes, that's me," Sophia replied, intrigued. The mailman delivered the envelope and left, leaving Sophia standing at the door, staring intently at the paper in her hands. The sender was unknown. Sophia closed the door and sat on the living room sofa. She carefully opened the envelope, as if she feared its contents might vanish at any moment. From inside, she took out a simple notebook, the kind you buy at any stationery store. As she opened the notebook, Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. There, on those pages yellowed by time, was the handwriting she would recognize anywhere. Her father's simple and slightly crooked handwriting. The first tears began to fall even before she could read the first line. It was as if, suddenly, time had turned back, and her father was there, sitting beside her, ready to tell her a story she had waited her whole life to hear. With her heart racing, Sophia began to read. David's words flowed across the page, revealing a man she had never really known. He spoke of the loneliness of the road, the endless nights at gas stations, the weight of responsibility he carried. "The road is a cruel companion," David wrote. "It gives you freedom, but it demands a high price. Every mile I travel takes me a little further away from you, my daughter. And that hurts more than any load I've ever carried." Sophia read and reread each word, absorbing the truth that her father had never been able to express in life. He spoke about his own childhood, about how he had grown up in a family where affection was something rare and precious. "My father never hugged me," David confessed on one page. "He never told me he loved me, and I promised myself it would be different with you, Sophia, but the words always got stuck in my throat. How could I say, 'I love you,' when I never heard that at home?" The revelations continued, page after page. David described how he watched Sophia grow during the few days he spent at home, how his heart filled with pride when he saw her reading, heard about her grades at school, realized how intelligent and curious she was. "I wanted to say so many things," he wrote. "I wanted to tell you how proud I was of you, how you were the reason I faced these endless roads. But the words never come out. Today I bought a little gift for you. I hope somehow it can say what I cannot." Sophia was openly crying now, her tears staining the pages of the notebook. She remembered every gift, every sweet treat her father had brought. At the time, they seemed like empty gestures. Now, she understood the love and despair behind each of them. David also talked about his work, about the long hours behind the wheel, about the sacrifices he made. "Every trip, every delivery is for you, Sophia. I want to give you a better life than the one I had. I want you to study, to graduate, to have opportunities that were never within my reach. I know I'm not as present as you deserve, but every mile I traveled was thinking about your future." The last pages of the notebook were the hardest to read. David talked about his fears, about how he feared that one day he might not come back home. "If something happens to me," he wrote, "I want you to know that I love you, Sophia. I have always loved you from the very first moment I held you in my arms. You are the best thing I have ever done in my life. The reason I wake up every morning and face another day on the road." When she finished reading, Sophia sat in silence for a long time, the notebook's pages open on her lap. Her world had been turned upside down. Everything she thought she knew about her father, about her childhood, about her own life, had been transformed. Drying her tears, Sophia noticed there was another paper in the envelope. It was a letter, written in different handwriting. She began to read it and discovered that the sender was Brian, an old colleague of her father's. Brian explained that he had bought David's truck after his death. Years later, while cleaning the vehicle, he found a small box hidden behind a panel. Inside, it was the notebook with David's notes. "Your father was a reserved man," Brian wrote. "But on long nights on the road, sometimes he would talk about you. His eyes would shine with pride. He carried a photo of you in his wallet, you know. He showed it to all of us, saying, 'This is my girl.' When I found this notebook, I knew you needed to read it." David might not have managed to say these things in life, but I think he would want you to know now. Sophia spent the rest of the day rereading the notebook, reliving her memories under a new light. Each recollection of her father gained a new meaning. The silences that once seemed cold were now laden with restrained emotion. The presence that appeared impersonal became tangible proofs of a love that didn't know how to express itself in words. That night, Sophia sat at her desk and began to write. She wrote a letter to her father, knowing he would never read it, but needing to put on paper everything she felt. She talked about her life, about her children, about how she now understood how much he loved her. "I love you too, Dad," she wrote at the end. "I've always loved you, even when I didn't understand your actions. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for every mile traveled, for every sacrifice made. I understand now, and I am grateful." In the days that followed, Sophia found herself looking at her own life with new eyes. She realized how sometimes it was difficult to express love, how easy it was to assume that people knew what we felt without us saying it. She promised herself she would be more open, that she would say, "I love you" more often, that she wouldn't let fear or shyness prevent her from expressing her feelings. She also decided to get in touch with Brian. She wanted to thank him for sending the notebook, but she also wanted to know more about her father. Conversations with Brian became frequent, and through them, Sophia discovered a side of David she had never known. She heard stories of how he helped other truck drivers in trouble, of how he was respected for his honesty and hard work. Over time, the pain of loss that Sophia had carried for so many years began to transform. It didn't disappear completely. There were still moments when she wished she could hug her father, could tell him in person that she forgave and loved him. But now, along with the sadness, there was also a sense of peace, of understanding. Sophia kept the little notebook as her most precious possession. Sometimes, on quiet nights, she would reread it, finding comfort in her father's words. And in every word of love she spoke to her own children, in every hug she gave, in every moment of connection, she felt she was honoring David's memory, completing the cycle of love he had so longed for, but never knew how to express. David's letter not only reconnected Sophia with the father she thought she had never really known, but also taught her valuable lessons about love, communication, and understanding. She learned that love is not always expressed in grand gestures or eloquent words. Sometimes it is in the small acts of sacrifice, in the silent choices made with the well-being of another in mind. And so, 10 years after her father's death, Sophia finally found the connection she had always longed for. Not in the way she expected, not in life, but through words written with love and kept for years, waiting for the right moment to be discovered and change everything. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.